Imhotep. It is Tuesday, October 19th, 2021, and we are live. Welcome to the African History Network show. We're also broadcasting on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, Imhotep. All right, so it's been a very busy day, and we had a great show on Monday. And on Monday, we did not get a chance to talk about day one in the trial of the men accused of murdering Ahmaud Arbery. So we have an update in what's going on in that trial. Okay, we have an update. And I was reading some articles about this. We have a good segment also from the Black News Channel on this as well. Jury selection is taking place. We talked about this a little bit on Roland Martin Unfiltered when I was on Friday. Jury selection is taking place in the trial of the three white men accused of murdering Ahmaud Arbery. And they sent out 1,000 jury duty notification letters. They sent out 1,000 jury duty notification letters. We know that it's going to take them some time, a few weeks, to get through this number of people for jury duty, and also so we'll talk about that, and we'll discuss some of the questions that the potential jurors are being asked as well. Okay, so we'll discuss that. About 600 of the 1,000 prospective jurors who received questionnaires in the case were called to the courthouse on Monday, October 18th, to begin the process to whittle down prospective jurors to 16 impartial people, including 4 alternates, to whittle it down to 16 impartial people, including 4 alternate jurors. All right, so we'll discuss that. And then there was a story. We talked about this a little bit on Monday, and we didn't really get a chance to get to it. There was a study that came out a few days ago. I saw a number of articles on this, one from the Washington Post from Wednesday, October 13th. Counties with more Confederate monuments. Counties with more Confederate monuments also had more lynchings, study finds. Counties with more Confederate monuments also had more lynchings, study finds. So we're going to talk some about this because, once again, this is the legacy of the Civil War, a legacy of slavery. This is still with us right now. This history is a current event. It is still with us right now. People's understanding of history shapes their understanding of politics, shapes their understanding of policies, and influences who they vote for, policies they support. All of this is connected. So there was a good article from Washington Post about this. Thegrio.com also had one on this as well. NBC News has an article. Now, we know that on October 24th, Sunday, October 24th, NBC News, NBC and MSNBC, they're airing a special dealing with the Civil War and correcting the history of how the Civil War is taught. Okay. So we're going to, on Monday, October 25th show, we'll discuss that documentary here on this show as well. You know, I teach an online class that deals with partly the history of the Civil War, from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968, where we look at from a more than 100-year period of history and look at all this history chronologically and see how all this impacts us today. Okay. That class meets on Saturdays, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Later in today's show, we'll give a brief recap of some of the things we've talked about in the class. You can still register for it. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Click on register here. And it's right on the homepage. As soon as you register, you can watch the class we just did this past weekend. Okay, so now also another story I saw, we posted this on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, pertaining to Ahmaud Arbery. Vice.com has a story that deals with on the website where people go to check to see if they will call for jury duty. Okay. Information about Ahmaud Arbery's mental health records were uploaded to the site, even though these records were ordered to be suppressed by the judge. Vice.com has this story today. Court mistakenly gave potential jurors, we're going to pull this up here. Court mistakenly gave potential jurors access to, and I'm letting it load up. Court mistakenly gave potential jurors access to Ahmaud Arbery's mental health history. Court mistakenly gave potential jurors access to Ahmaud Arbery's mental health history. So this is a big story here from Vice.com, and we'll talk about a little bit today. You'll probably hear more about it as well. The Glenn County Superior Court website gave potential jurors access to suppressed evidence in the murder trial of Ahmaud Arbery's killers. This is from October 19th, 2021. So we'll discuss this also. All right, now on the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's corrects your own behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you can control the circumference of his or her actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the African History Network show. We deal with current events in history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, Kemet, to 22828. To sign up for our email newsletter, text the word Kemet, Kemet, to 22828. To sign up for our email newsletter, also visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Sign up for our email newsletter there as well. Now, if you want me to do a presentation for your group or organization, Kwanzaa is coming up. African American History Month is coming up in February. If you want me to do a presentation for your group or organization, or if you want me to teach any of the online classes that I do, if you want me to teach those in person or virtually for your group, organization, or church, email me at AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, or visit our website, and you can email me through the website as well. You can also call me 313-462-0003, 313-462-0003. If you want me to do a presentation for your group, organization, church, etc. Okay, so we're going to jump into, I want to jump into this first topic here before we go to break. So ABC News.com, I've been reading a number of articles on this, Washington Post, New York Times, dealing with the trial. Trial started on Monday, October 18th. It started with jury selection. Okay. This is a good piece here from ABC News. Key takeaways from trial of three men in Ahmaud Arbery killing day one. Okay. And Ahmaud's father, Marcus Arbery Sr., said that he is focused on justice. He's focused on justice. All right. Now, the first group of prospective jurors were called to the Glenn County Court. The first group of prospective jurors were called to the Glenn County Georgia courthouse to begin the arduous task of selecting a panel to hear evidence in the case. Now, Ahmaud Arbery's family and their attorneys say they are not taking anything for granted. They are not taking anything for granted. And here you see a picture of Esli Merritt and Ahmaud Arbery's mother, um, Wanda Cooper Jones. Attorney Benjamin Crump, who's a attorney for the family, said it is a lived experience for Black people in America that we can never take for granted that a white person will be convicted for killing a Black person, no matter how much evidence we have. He said this during a news conference outside the courthouse in Brunswick, Georgia. Now, Arbery family attorney Esli Merritt spoke with Lindsay Davis Monday, October 18th, Monday evening on ABC News Live Primetime about jury selection and what justice looks like as the murder trial begins. We're also going to share an interview that Esli Merritt did with my girl Yodit Tawalde on the Black News Channel, Making the Case. Okay. And then also we have a clip from Candace Kelly doing legal analysis. Candace and I are sometimes panelists on Roland Martin Unfiltered, but she's a legal analyst for the Black News Channel. We have that coming up on the other side of the break. Now, Esli Merritt said, we certainly believe that there should be Black and brown voices as well as white voices on the jury. We certainly believe there should be Black and brown voices as well as white voices on the jury, and having that diversity that represents the population here probably will make all the difference. Okay, now Marcus Arbery Sr., Ahmaud's father, said, I know my son was lynched by a white mob. I know my son was lynched by a white mob. And when you go through now, the New York Times, if you go to NewYorkTimes.com, they took the footage that William Roddy Bryan recorded. They also looked at surveillance footage from along the trail where they were chasing Ahmaud, and they put all of that footage together chronologically based upon timestamps on the video. They put all that footage together chronologically to give a more fuller picture of what actually happened and how long they chased Ahmaud also. Okay. So when you get a chance, check that out as well at NewYorkTimes.com. Okay, so we're coming up here on the break. We're going to continue this on the other side of the break. Listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 a.m. the Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. All right, stand by, everybody. Stand by. Share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in also. Stand by. Okay, stand by. Back from break in 4 minutes. How's everybody doing? Share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in. Okay. Who still needs to register for the online courses I teach on Saturday and Sunday? Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Stand by. Also, if you want to advertise with the African History Network, email us at ahnshow@africanhistorynetwork.com. ahnshow@africanhistorynetwork.com. Stand by. Back from break in 3 minutes. Stand by. Stand by, everybody. How you doing, Becky? If you want me to do a presentation for your group or organization, also let me know. We could do it in person or virtually.
History Network show. We deal with current events in history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Unfortunately, many people confuse what racism is. Racism is a power structure. There was laws and policies that put us in this predicament. It's going to be laws and policies that take us out. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you control the compass of his or her actions, because the mind can't do a piece what it doesn't know. We have it all on 910 AM Superstation. 910, the Superstation, Detroit's only African-American talk radio.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Tuesday, October 19th, 2021, and we are live. Today is also LaWanda Page's birthday. Veteran actress LaWanda Page. You may not know about her stage name, but you know about the character that she became famous for. LaWanda Page was Aunt Esther on Sanford & Son. Okay, so I posted that on a Facebook fan page, The African History Network. The African History Network. She was born October 19th, 2020. She was born Alberta Peel, P-E-A-L, Alberta Peel. She passed away on September 14th, 2002. Okay, so we want to wish a happy birthday to, can I say everybody's favorite aunt, right? We want to wish a happy birthday to, happy heavenly birthday to Aunt Esther. Everybody's, one of everybody's favorite aunts. Okay, Aunt Esther. Let me pull this up here. Where is that? We have it here. I think it's right here. Here we go. So she was born October 19th, 2020. LaWanda Page. She's best known for her role as Aunt Esther on Sanford & Son. She later reprised the role in the television shows Sanford Arms and Sanford. Neither one of those shows lasted. I don't think either one lasted a full season. Sanford Arms or Sanford. Okay. I remember seeing both of those shows. They tried to revive Sanford & Son and the magic from Sanford & Son. After paying dues, what the hell? Why is this up here? After paying dues on the club circuit, where she shared stages with noted comedians such as Red Fox and Richard Pryor, LaWanda Page moved to Los Angeles in the early 1960s, where she became a member of the comedy group Skillet, Leroy and Company. Skillet, Leroy and Company. Skillet was Ernest Skillet Mahan, and Leroy was Wilbert Leroy Daniel. We remember Skillet and Leroy from Sanford & Son also. Wham, bam, bebop, shabam. I can do it. Yes, I can. We remember all that, right? So in Los Angeles, LaWanda Page started honing the feisty approach to comedy that would make her famous. LaWanda Page and Red Fox, who portrayed Fred Sanford, Fred G. Sanford. Okay, you left out the G. Okay, Fred G. Sanford. His real name was John Elroy Sanford. That was Red Fox's real name, John Elroy Sanford, S-A-N-F-O-R-D, period. So LaWanda Page and Red Fox were very close friends from the time they were preteens, having attended school and growing up together in St. Louis. Eventually both entered the field of comedy separately and performed their own stage acts during her tenure as a stand-up comic, a career she continued into the 1990s. LaWanda Page often was billed as the Queen of Comedy or the Black Queen of Comedy. All right, so we want to wish a happy birthday to one Miss LaWanda Page, Alberta Peel, who will forever be known as Aunt Esther. Okay. All right. So welcome back to the African History Network show. Calling number is 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the calling number if you have a question or comment. So right before the break, we were giving an update on what's going on with Day in the trial of the three white men who allegedly murdered Ahmaud Arbery. We know jury selection began on Monday, October 18th. Okay, that was day one. Jury selection continues. 1,000 jury notification notices have been sent out. They're trying to get 16 jurors, which includes 4 alternate jurors out of this 1,000 who were sent jury notification notices, jury duty notification notices. They're trying to get 16 impartial jurors that includes 4 alternate jurors. There was a piece from ABC News also from I think this is from October 18th as well. 1,000 summoned as possible jurors in Arbery slaying. Okay, we talked about this briefly on Roland Martin Unfiltered. I haven't had a chance to find the clip when I was on Friday. Maybe on tomorrow's show we'll find it because I have to go through and see where in the show that was and edit it some. So we may play that on tomorrow's show. But ABC News had this piece from October 12th. Yeah, October 12th, 2021. 1,000 summoned as possible jurors in Arbery slaying. 1,000 summoned in possible 1,000 summoned as possible jurors in Arbery slaying trial. Jury duty notices have been mailed to 1,000 people in Georgia for the approaching trial of 3 white men charged with killing Ahmaud Arbery. All right. So if we go back to this is from abcnews.go.com. I want to go back to the piece that deals with day one. We're going to go to clip 1 here in just a minute. Shakita from Black News Channel. So Ahmaud Arbery's father says he said, "I know my son was lynched." He said, "I know my son was lynched by a white mob." Okay, and this is what many people are saying, those that live in Georgia and outside of Georgia. Now, the 3 defendants are Gregory McMichael, 65, a retired police officer, his son, Travis McMichael, 35, who allegedly shot Ahmaud 3 times with a shotgun. He claimed self-defense after they chased Ahmaud down for a number of minutes. They were the aggressors, chasing Ahmaud with guns. Ahmaud's unarmed, but now he wants to claim self-defense. But Ahmaud had a right to defend himself also. He had a right to defend himself as well. Travis McMichael, 35, the son, and their neighbor, William Roddy Bryan, 52, who was like, "Hey, I'm just along for the ride. I'm just documenting everything. I'm just recording. I ain't had nothing to do with this." But that's not what William Roddy Bryan told police on the scene. See, when body camera footage of one of the officers on the scene catches Brian saying that he was trying to box Ahmaud in with his vehicle. Okay, the officer asked him, "Were you just a bystander?" He said, "Well, not." He said, "Not necessarily." He talks about how he was trying to box Ahmaud in with his vehicle. All 3 defendants have pleaded not guilty to charges of murder, aggravated assault, false imprisonment, and criminal attempt to commit false imprisonment stemming from the February 23rd, 2020 fatal shooting of Ahmaud Arbery in Satilla Shores, the Satilla Shores neighborhood near Brunswick. Now, just keep in mind, I'm not saying it's the same thing. I'm not trying to prejudice the jury or anything, but just keep in mind, the 2 white men who killed Emmett Till, they said they were not guilty also. They pleaded not guilty as well. I'm not saying it's the same thing. J.W. Millum and Roy Bryant, they said they were not guilty as well. Then, after they were found not guilty by an all-white jury of killing Emmett Till, they then did an interview in Look magazine a few months after the trial and admitted to killing Emmett Till in the interview with Look magazine. But since they had already been found not guilty because of double jeopardy laws, they could not be tried again. I'm not saying it's the same thing, but everybody back then, everybody there in Mississippi, Money, Mississippi, all that, they all knew that those white men killed Emmett Till. I'm not saying it's the same thing, but, you know, it is what it is. So prosecutors alleged that Ahmaud Arbery was jogging through the neighborhood when Gregory McMichael, former police detective, 65 years old, saw him and thought he resembled a burglary suspect seen on security video posted online by his neighborhood association. Was the security video in color or black and white? Now, there were other white people who went on this security video from a house that's under construction. There were other white people who wandered onto the site looking around, say, hey, what's going on? None of them were chased down that we know of. None of them were chased down that we know of. And if the video, security video, was in black and white as the security video of the white people who we saw going, the other people who we saw going onto the property under construction, that video was in black and white. So if this video was in black and white and he's African American and dark skinned, how could you be so sure it's him? How could you be so sure it's the same guy in the black and white video if the video was black and white? Because the other video we've seen, the surveillance video of the house under construction, is black and white. So how could you be so sure is this guy? Now, Gregory McMichael and his son allegedly armed themselves with guns. Okay, allegedly armed themselves with guns. And with the help of William Roddy Bryant, chased down Ahmaud in their pickup trucks, prosecutors said. Travis McMichael allegedly shot Ahmaud 3 times with a shotgun after Ahmaud was cornered and began fighting Travis McMichael in the street. Now, that's called self-defense because he ran trying to get away from him. That's called self-defense. He had a right to defend himself. These white men were the aggressors. The fatal encounter was partially video recorded by William Roddy Bryant on his cell phone and is poised to be the most significant piece of evidence prosecutors plan to present to the jury. Now, the McMichaels are claiming they were exercising their right to make a citizen's arrest under state law, but that law has been repealed following Ahmaud Arbery's death. That law in Georgia has been repealed following Ahmaud Arbery's death. And that law largely deals with retail shoplifting, retail theft. Now, Travis McMichael is also claiming he shot Ahmaud in self-defense, according to his attorney. William Roddy Bryant, the third guy, claims he was just a witness to the incident, according to his lawyer. But that's not what you told police on the scene, William Roddy Bryant. That's not what you told them then. But prosecutors allege William Roddy Bryant was an active participant in the pursuit of Ahmaud Arbery, and that he attempted to use his truck to block Arbery's path, because that's what you told police, and is recorded, player. That's what you told them there on the scene. In addition to state charges, all 3 men have been indicted on federal hate crime charges. In addition to state charges, all 3 men have been indicted on federal hate crime charges. Now, about 600 of the 1,000 prospective jurors who received questionnaires in the case were called to the courthouse on Monday, October 18th, to begin the process to whittle down prospective jurors to get 16 impartial jurors, including 4 alternates. Okay. About 20 of the would-be jurors spent Monday afternoon answering general questions as a group before lawyers began questioning individual jurors. while Chatham County Superior Court Judge Timothy R. Walmsley, 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 who was appointed to preside over the Glenn County trial, allowed the media to observe and live stream the general questions of the group. He barred cameras from filming questioning of individual prospective jurors. I want to go to clip number 1 here. This is from the Black News Channel. This is legal analyst Candace Kelly talking about the jury selection process. Let's go to clip number 1, Shakita.
They are gearing up for jury selection now, and we want to know how the process will unfold because the jury pool here is, unusually large.
It is very unusually large. This is a courthouse that, in a situation like this, they would normally have about 125 to 155 people to choose from. And now we're looking at 1,000 people, 600 of whom are going to be at the courthouse today, 400 in wait in case they can't get the 12 jurors and the 4 alternates. Now, if we break down the math here, about 1 out of every 5 people, 85 people in the county have been called for jury selection. So it's going to be a very difficult process to find someone who doesn't know the family, whether it's the McMichaels, whether it's the Arbery's, or whether it's a relative thereof, or who doesn't know anything about the case. So this is expected to take about 2 to possibly 3 weeks in terms of jury selection. It's going to be a 3-pronged approach here in terms of not just one person asking another person, the information about their questionnaire. There are going to be 3 points within the courthouse where people will be questioned about this 3-page questionnaire that they got to see if they can come up with 12 impartial jurors. Sharon, not an easy task.
Yeah, it's not, Candace. Normally with so much media attention, defense attorneys, they ask to change the venue, right? Move the trial somewhere else. But they did not do that this time. What could that mean? What are they telegraphing, if anything?
This is very important because, as you said, normally it is the case something with this type of international media attention, defense attorneys want to move to another venue. Here, I think this is really a sign that these defense attorneys think that they have allies within the community, that they might as well go ahead and stay here because they can find people who will support the McMichael, people who will support William Bodie Bryan in this process. So it's a very interesting idea to think that they would not want to move because in speaking to many people in the media, they have said they are 100% sure that they can find those 12 people who will agree with them. So Sharon, this is one that I think that while a lot of people have a lot of faith and while we've seen changes over the years, it is very concerning to many that defense attorneys are very comfortable to stay right here and pick people that they think that they can befriend and become allies within this jury. So not a good sign for the prosecution, but we will see, Sharon, how this turns out.
The question of race is sure to come up during jury selection to begin with. And doesn't it have to? We know from reports, police on the stand during the preliminary process here saying what Ahmaud Arbery's final words, the final words they heard, the N-word, Candace. So will that come up as part of the trial?
It will come up as part of the voir dire, right? The jury selection. In terms of the trial, we think back to the Chauvin trial. Race wasn't an issue when we thought that it might be somewhere in there planted because we did hear about it so much during jury selection. But when it comes to this particular trial, we're really not just sure. We're not sure because of the evidence that the judge has and has not decided on in terms of race. For example, some of the information that you mentioned in terms of maybe the text messages and the last information that was said by the father and son team, we don't know whether or not that's going to make it in. I would suspect that race definitely would play a part in this because this is something that is a little bit different than the Chauvin trial because there's so much digital information in terms of them, being on the phone in jail, talking to people that will probably come into play. And unlike the Chauvin trial, I think that we will hear about race. And as Lee Merritt has said, we'll learn about what this particular county thinks about race, what they thought about it a couple of years ago, and what they think about it now, just in terms of the culture, the people, and how they look at people who unite cross the tracks and enter into another neighborhood who don't look like them.
Let's talk about evidence then, if we can, for a moment, Candace. Will attorneys on both sides be presenting to make their case? What evidence will they have?
Well, the evidence, I want to start with the defense because, again, they feel very strongly, and it's interesting to think about what they're going to say. The defense is going to say, listen, a reasonable person with all of the evidence and information that they got beforehand, meaning these three men, would have done the same thing, and that this ultimately was a case that ended up in self-defense. So they're going to use the reasonable person standard because they said that they had received several pieces of information that somebody like Ahmaud Arbery looked like somebody who had been there before on 4 occasions, so that they were just continuing to look for the guy that happened to be in the vicinity before, and they were carrying out what they could do by law. We know now that law doesn't exist anymore in terms of these types of citizens arrests. In terms of the prosecution, they're really going to be looking at a situation here as to, well, why was this man even a threat? And why did you even have to use that amount of force if you were stopping someone just because you thought he might have, stolen a couple of $1,000s of typing, which was obvious that he did not have on his person because he was running freely and without anything that you could see. You can't carry that on your person, and that was evident to them. So it's going to be, that juxtaposition that is really going to be some of the narrative that we hear about. And I think that, as you said, when we talk about race, that's going to be a big deal too. Why were they using the N-word? Why were so many people moved off the case because there was so much wrongdoing by the part of the police in this situation and the DA.
Yeah, this is a throwback. Jim Crow, alive and well. We'll see what happens. A lot of people watching, a lot of people haunted by the case, by that footage that we can never unsee. Candace, thank you. We'll check back in with you next hour. Appreciate it. Stay with us here at BNC.
Okay, pause right there. Okay, so that was from Monday, October 18th, Black News Channel. That was Candace Kelly with legal analyst Candace Kelly with Sharon Reed on Start Your Day, how jury selection works in Ahmaud Arbery trial. How jury selection works in Ahmaud Arbery trial. Now I want to go to this next clip here. Also on Monday, Esley Merritt, along with Ahmaud Arbery's mother, Wanda Cooper Jones, spoke with Yadita Walde on making the case on the Black News Channel. Let's go to this clip, Shakita, clip number 2.
Began today in the trial of the 3 men accused of killing Ahmaud Arbery. Jury duty summons were sent to 1,000 Brunswick residents, from which 12 will be tasked with deciding the fate of Greg and Travis McMichael, along with William Roddy Bryan. Many are calling this one of the most important trials in Georgia's history. Earlier today, I had the chance to speak with Ahmaud's mother, Ms. Wanda Cooper Jones, and her attorney, Esley Merritt, about what this trial means, not just for her, but for our nation as a whole. Wanda, let me just ask you, it's day 1 of this trial. It finally began with jury selection today. Was there ever a time when you thought that this day would never come to pass?
Yes, often in the beginning, back in February, the case is so dark in the very beginning, this day would ever come.
How have you prepared yourself for what could be, at minimum, a month-long trial?
The plan is to do it day by day, take it day by day, moment by moment.
Now, jury notices were mailed out to 1,000 people, and they're expecting this jury selection process to be at least 2 weeks long. So the county basically casted this wide net out just to make sure that they get to impanel a 12-member jury. How confident are you, especially given the publicity surrounding this case, how confident are you that you are going to be able to get 12 fair and impartial jurors?
I'm thinking back to the election of DA Jackie Watts and how we were able to get a new DA that spoke volume that people they got out of those visits. So that also
showed me that there was some fair people that were in my community.
Speaking of community, can you tell me what kind of support you've been getting, you and the family? What's it been like leading up to this trial?
The support has been amazing. The support has offered much encouragement and hope.
Lee, let me ask you, Ahmaud's death, it became a broader reckoning in racial injustice in our legal system, and many are calling it one of the most important trials in recent history. What could this trial mean for the health of this nation?
I mean, it's one of those litmus test cases all the way back to Emmett Till, where, as you know, an all-white jury acquitted the men who murdered him. Here, we're back in South Georgia, where unfortunately things like what happened to Ahmaud are still common. And we want to see if the courts will give him a fair shake. So far, we've had a judge who I think has been calling the shots well in terms of what comes into evidence. But having a fair and impartial jury who's able to hear the evidence and come up with the right conclusion, which we believe is a conviction, is something that we still have some reservations about.
You know, Wanda, justice is a term that a lot of people use, but it implies that there is going to be some sort of full restoration. And what that means here would be you getting Ahmaud back, and that can't happen, but you can get accountability. What does that look like for you?
But for me, it looks like having all three suspects go to jail forever.
Same question to you, Lee.
We were proud to see some of the strides the community has made. We know since the murder of Ahmaud Arbery, there's been an Ahmaud Arbery hate crime statute passed in Georgia, making it, finally bringing it up at the time, so almost every other state that has a hate crime statute on the books. We saw the defense being asserted today in this trial, the citizens arrest statute removed from the book. And we saw Jackie Johnson, the prosecutor who was initially responsible for doing justice in this case, criminally indicted for failing to uphold her duty of office. And so, in a lot of ways, we measure justice in that way. Those outcomes that the community was able to organize and fight for. But the men, as Wanda said, the men in this case being convicted and appropriately sentenced, we think it would be appropriate for men to spend the rest of their lives in jail, would be the cornerstone for justice for us.
Wanda, there's often so much focus on how Ahmaud died, and there's going to be more focus on that, especially when this guilt-innocence portion of the trial begins. So what I'd like for you to do is tell us about Ahmaud's life and how he actually lived it.
Ahmaud was the baby of 3 children. Ahmaud was the baby of the family. Ahmaud was loved. Ahmaud, he enjoyed jogging. I never thought I would lose Ahmaud. One day when he went out for a job, but unfortunately I did. And on top of that, this day was calm. I often think that it's a dream because I never thought I would lose so soon. So here I am.
Can you tell us a favorite personal memory about your son?
Ahmaud was, he had a saying that he would say, he would see me coming in from work kind of exhausted. And he would say, Mom, when life gets hard, you got to get hard with it. And I often think of that. And when he said that, I mean, he truly, he believed that. So I think of that often. When my days are hard, in the coming days, I just have to get hard. I just got to get hard with it.
All right. So that was from Making the Case with Yodit Tewolde, Monday, October 18th, 2021, the Black News Channel. She spoke with Esley Merritt and Wanda Cooper Jones, Ahmaud Arbery's mother. I want to go quickly to this article here, to this piece from National Public Radio, NPR.org. One of the things, we talked about this back in May when it happened. Esley Merritt just referenced it here in the interview. back in May in Georgia, they repealed the citizens arrest law, which these white men allegedly operated within to hunt down Ahmaud Arbery. This is from May 11th, 2021. In Ahmaud Arbery's name, Georgia repeals citizens arrest law. Okay. Now, this is an example of how the history of the past still impacts us today. Republican Governor Brian, ignorant as Brian Kemp, signed the overall bill he championed after at the Georgia Capitol on Monday, alongside a bipartisan group of state lawmakers, as well as Ahmaud Arbery's mother, Wanda Cooper Jones, and sister Jasmine Arbery. Wanda Cooper Jones at the Capitol said, "I think the state of Georgia is moving in the right direction by passing this particular bill. Unfortunately, I had to lose my son to get significant change, but again, I'm still thankful." At the ceremony, Brian Kemp, Donald Trump supporter, who stole the election from Stacey Abrams, he said, quote, "This bill makes Georgia the first state in the country to repeal its citizens arrest statute." Now, keep in mind, Georgia is a former Confederate state that took up arms against the Union to maintain slavery. Georgia is the state with the largest Confederate monument in the country, called Stone Mountain. Governor Brian Kemp went on to say, "Today we are replacing a Civil War era law, ripe for abuse, with language that balances the sacred right to self-defense of a person and property with our shared responsibility to root out injustice and set our state on a better path forward," he said. A Civil War era law, 1861 to 1865, that period of time, and then Reconstruction, 1865 to 1877. The law which allowed any citizen to arrest another if a crime was committed, quote unquote, within his immediate knowledge, has been replaced with specific language to provide for citizen detainment in specific circumstances, including shopkeepers who witness shoplifters, and restaurant owners and employees who witness, quote unquote, dine and dash customers. Now, keep in mind, they ain't witnessed Ahmaud doing anything, just running, jogging. Okay. The men accused in Ahmaud Arbery's killing have said they thought Arbery had committed a burglary when they chased him through a neighborhood near Brunswick, though no evidence of that crime has emerged, and they didn't see him allegedly actually doing the crime. Okay. But they used this Civil War era statute of citizens arrest as a pretext to hunt him down. Okay, so read this article here from NPR National Public Radio. All right, now those watching on Facebook and YouTube, our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, keep watching for a few more minutes. We're going to keep going for a few more minutes here. If you like this type of information, you support the African History Network, $, the AHN Show through Cash App, $, the AHN Show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show. And we're going to talk about how the counties that have a large number of Confederate monuments also had a large number of lynchings also. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. Right now, it's correct wrong behavior is not over till we win. Wakanda forever. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace. All right, stand by. Stand by. Okay. All right, let's continue here. And this is our official Cash App account, $, the AHN Show, SHOW. And when you go to it, it shows my picture there, and it says Michael. These other ones are fake African History Network Cash App accounts. Okay, let's continue here. Now, I want to go to, also this other story here. We posted this story. This came out today. court mistakenly gave potential jurors access to Ahmaud Arbery's mental health history. Now, this is from Vice.com, and we posted this on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network. The African History Network. Okay. I also posted this on my personal page as well. So this information was supposed to be suppressed. The judge ordered that this information not be admitted into the trial. We're not exactly sure how this is going to play a role, how things are going to proceed. The Glenn County Superior Court website gave potential jurors access to suppressed evidence in the murder trial of Ahmaud Arbery's killers. So this information just came out today. The Georgia County Court trying the alleged murderers of Ahmaud Arbery has mistakenly exposed potential jurors to suppressed evidence, including his mental health history, which a judge banned from trial, including his mental health history, which a judge banned from trial. Now, jury candidates who visit the Glenn County Superior Court website, seeking information where are we here? Seeking information about what time and what day they need to show up can view in just a couple of clicks, all motions filed so far in the murder trial of Travis and Gregory McMichael and William Roddy Bryant. Now, those documents include specifics about Ahmaud Arbery's mental health and prior criminal history that a judge ordered suppressed and never brought up in court. Now, at this point, it's not clear how many people clicked on it, read it. Okay, it's not clear right now, but it was uploaded. The motions also include evidence that prosecutors would like to use against the McMichaels, including a Confederate battle flag vanity plate on Travis McMichael's truck and how often the father and son had used their licensed firearms. The judge has yet to make a ruling on the admissibility of that evidence. If a jury candidate were to read that information, it would make them ineligible to sit on the jury that would determine the Michaels and Bryant's fates. And if that person were to be chosen for the jury, it could be grounds for a mistrial, although that's unlikely, legal experts told Vice News. Now, Saparna Melampati, a professor at John Marshall Law School in Atlanta, in just one second here, let me go just a second here. Let's see, let's pull this up. All right, let's see, let's do this. Okay. Professor at John Marshall Law School in Atlanta, he said, prominently displaying that information. Let me see if we can blow this up here. He said, prominently displaying that information and it being accessible to jurors with just a click of a button, I would say is problematic. When potential jurors have information that may or may not be admitted in the courtroom, the jurors may be influenced, end quote. Now, this oversight further complicates an already challenging jury selection process with an unprecedented 1,000 candidates, more than 10 times the number normally asked. The sea of media coverage regarding the trial and nearly daily protests over the treatment of African Americans in a system plagued by racism also makes picking an impartial jury a monumental task. Glenn County told Vice News that the court is aware of the links and a solution is in the works. Glenn County Superior Court Clerk Ronald Adams told Vice News Tuesday morning, quote, we are aware of that issue and the decision about that will be made by the judge. Now, the trial motions are available on a menu on the left side of the court's website. Clicking one of the three links labeled State of Georgia versus Gregory McMichael, State of Georgia versus Travis McMichael, or State of Georgia versus William Roddy Bryan directs visitors to a page containing every filing and ruling related to the case since May 11, 2020, when warrants for the McMichaels' arrest were filed. All right, so you can check this out also here from vice.com. Court mistakenly gave potential jurors access to Ahmaud Arbery's mental health history. All right, and this is from October 19th, 2021. All right, I want to shift gears here. I want to go to this next story. We're going to squeeze this in because we ran out of time on yesterday's show, and this is extremely important. We may talk about this some more tomorrow, and we know the special is coming up on MSNBC dealing with lynchings. So, and that's on Sunday, October 24th. So we're going to talk about that on our show on Monday. That'll be something that we talk about on Monday because it comes on 10 p.m. on Sunday. Unless if it's streaming, if I get a chance to watch it before then, we may talk about it on Sunday show. We may do that. Sunday, we're on 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I may be able to squeeze it in on Sunday show. We'll have to see. All right. Now, I want to go to this next story here. This deals with Confederate monuments and lynchings. Confederate monuments and lynchings. Okay. There's a number of news outlets have carried this story. This is a study that just came out. Number of Confederate monuments linked to number of lynchings study finds. Number of Confederate monuments linked to number of lynchings study finds. NBC News has a good article on this as well as Washington Post, the Washington Post. This piece right here is from October 16th, 2021. These are some of the things that we deal with in my 10-week online course, From the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968, because this is a period of time that we deal with here. Okay, scholars and activists have long said that Confederate memorials are associated with hate. We want to provide empirical evidence of that, said researcher Kaishia Henderson. Places with more Confederate monuments tend to also have a history of more lynchings. According to a new study by researchers at the University of Virginia, published, now the study was published by the National Academy of Sciences. The study analyzed county level lynching data involving African Americans from 1832 to 1950. County level lynching data involving African Americans from 1832 to 1950. The data showed that the number of lynchings in an area was associated with a higher likelihood that the same area would have Confederate monuments. Let me repeat that. The data showed that the number of lynchings in an area was associated with a higher likelihood that the same area would have Confederate monuments. Now, Kashia Henderson, who led the study, said this is not a surprising finding. She's a University of Virginia researcher and psychologist. She said the prediction was always that lynching memorials would be connected. The prediction was always that lynching and memorials would be connected, that lynching and memorials would be connected. So those who keep saying, oh, these are just harmless, this is the monuments, the statues, they're just about our history, things like this. No, these are symbols of hate and domestic terrorism. Okay? These are symbols of hate and domestic terrorism that were purposely erected to try to keep African Americans in a low subservient position in society. And I'm going to show you a chart here in just a minute that shows the period of times that you had the most number of Confederate monuments built. Okay. And these Confederate monuments largely were not built right after the Civil War ended. Okay. It's going to be years after that. And they were tied to suppressing African Americans. We made this prediction because we knew the history of lynchings and memorials. We made this prediction because we knew the history of lynchings and memorials. Also, scholars and activists have long said that Confederate memorials are associated with hate. We want to provide empirical evidence of that. Now, this is related to the story we just finished dealing with Ahmaud Arbery, because that story took place in Georgia. Georgia is a former Confederate state. Georgia is the state with the largest Confederate monument out of anywhere in this country. It's called Stone Mountain. And we've talked about Stone Mountain here before. I've shown you pictures of Stone Mountain. I've been to Stone Mountain. I've climbed Stone Mountain. I've been to the top of Stone Mountain. On the side of Stone Mountain, for those that don't know, have never heard of it, have never seen it, on the side of Stone Mountain is the carvings, these huge carvings of 3 traitors to the Union: General Robert E. Lee, Thomas Stonewall Jackson, and Jefferson Davis. Jefferson Davis, one of the biggest traitors in the history of the country. He was the president of the Confederacy. He was from Mississippi. All 3 of these men were white supremacist slave owners who took up arms against the Union, committed treason against the Union, and fought to maintain slavery. This is in Georgia right now, in Stone Mountain. Read this article here from SmithsonianMag.com, Smithsonian Institute. What will happen to Stone Mountain, America's largest Confederate memorial? What will happen to Stone Mountain, America's largest Confederate memorial? This is from August 22nd, 2017. This is after the Charlottesville attack that took place in 2017. Okay, Charlottesville, Virginia. Okay, so read this article here. Now, and then we know Travis McMichael, he had a vanity plate on his car of a Confederate battle flag, and the vanity plate resembled the Georgia state flag that they got, that existed from the 1950s through the early 2000s. And that Georgia state flag had the Confederate battle flag on it also. That's what his vanity plate was. That's why they didn't want that admitted into court, because they didn't want to make it look like they were white supremacists. They didn't want the jury to get the wrong idea. We're just some good old boys, never meaning no harm. Now, lynchings, which were used to punish African Americans primarily through the eras of slavery and Jim Crow, were used as an indicator in the study because they are recognizable forms of violence used to suppress and intimidate Black people. Okay. Lynchings were used to punish African Americans primarily through the eras of slavery and Jim Crow, but more so Jim Crow than slavery. Lynchings are going to be used more so in Jim Crow than slavery. During the slavery era, the people more likely to be lynched would be free African Americans, as opposed to slaves, generally speaking, because slaves were property, and their movements were more regulated. Okay, their movements were more controlled, unless they run away or something like that. Okay, but free African Americans, especially if they were free still in the South, because even though majority free African Americans run away to the North, you still have some free African Americans in the South. So they were more likely to be lynched. But the majority of the lynchings are going to take place after the Civil War ends, during the Jim Crow era and into the early 1900s as well. Lynchings were used to punish African Americans primarily through the eras of slavery and Jim Crow, were used as an indicator in the study because they are recognizable forms of violence used to suppress and intimidate Black people. The research also cited a study that analyzed 30 dedication speeches for Confederate monuments and found that half of these speeches use explicitly racist language. Okay, the research also cited a study that analyzed 30 dedication speeches for Confederate monuments and found that half of them use explicitly racist phrases. Some even mention protecting the Anglo-Saxon race. Now, it's important to note that even though General Robert E. Lee was a white supremacist, and even though he was a brutal slave owner, things like this, after the Civil War ended, General Robert E. Lee was against Confederate monuments, and he was against using any of the Confederate flags after the Civil War ended. He was even against Confederate monuments that were dedicated to him. He was even against Confederate monuments that were dedicated to him. There were times where they were unveiling a monument, a statue in his honor, and he was asked to attend, and he declined. He said that he was against the Confederate monuments. He said that America needed a time of healing because the Union is bringing the South back into the Union. There's still tensions between the South and the North. And he said there need to be a time of healing. And if you have these Confederate monuments, you're using these Confederate flags, things like this keeps the womb open. Okay. This keeps the wound open. So he said that there had to be a time for healing. If you read this article here from theatlantic.com, the myth of the kindly General Lee, the myth of the kindly General Lee, the legend of the Confederate leader's heroism and decency is based in the fiction of a person who never existed. This is by Adam Sewer. This is from June 4th, 2017. The myth of the kindly General Lee. But one of the things it talks about in here is how he was against Confederate monuments and using the Confederate flags after the Civil War ended. They also talk about the lost cause. And this is something that they're going to talk about in the documentary from NBC, MSNBC, dealing with the Civil War on Sunday, October 24th. But even if one conceded Lee's military prowess, he would still be responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Americans in defense of the South's authority to own millions of human beings as property because they are Black. General Robert E. Lee's elevation is a key part of a 150-year-old propaganda campaign designed to erase slavery as the cause of the Civil War and whitewash the Confederate cause as a noble one. This is called the lost cause. You've heard me talk about this before. This lost cause propaganda impacts America today, and especially a lot of people in the South, and gives them a distorted view of history. It gives them a distorted view of history. The ideology is known as the lost cause. And as historian David Blight, who you'll see in the documentary on MSNBC dealing with the Civil War, as the historian David Blight writes, it provided a foundation on which Southerners built the Jim Crow system, the lost cause. They are unwitting victims of this propaganda campaign, those who lack the knowledge to separate history from sentiment. Those who lack the knowledge to separate history from sentiment. And many of these people who buy into this lost cause campaign were part of another insurrection, January 6, 2021, at the U.S. Capitol building, which is a continuation of the insurrection known as the U.S. Civil War. Those are directly connected. Those are directly connected. Then there are those whose reverence for General Robert E. Lee relies on replacing the actual Lee with a mythical figure who never truly existed. So read this piece here from TheAtlantic.com. The myth of the kindly General Lee, the legend of the Confederate leader's heroism and decency is based in the fiction of a person who never existed. All right, we're going to continue. Now, who still needs to register for the 10-week online course that I teach on Saturdays from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968? Because a lot of this we deal with in the class, and we take you through our history chronologically, year by year. It's at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. It's a 10-week online course. Each class we go through and analyze approximately a 10-year period of history. And we deal with some events leading up to the Civil War taking place, starting with the Louisiana Purchase of 1803. We talk about the Dred Scott case as well, 1857, March 6, 1857, U.S. Supreme Court case, Dred Scott, which is a really, really deep case, which also, it also involves the Missouri Compromise of 1820, because the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that the Missouri Compromise was unconstitutional, and it also deals with the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854 as well. All that's tied together in the Dred Scott case, and is before the 14th Amendment of 1868, before the Civil Rights Act of 1866. This is 1857. Okay, so we just posted a link here. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are recorded. You can go back and watch them anytime. You can ask questions during class. You can see me. I can't see you during class. We have a live text chat. And even after the 10-week online course is over with, you still have access to the full course. You can still go watch the full course. It's on sale now, $70, regularly $130. You can even use it with your children. The content is PG-13. From the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. All right, let's continue. Now, the research also cited a study that analyzed 30 dedication speeches for Confederate monuments and found that half of them used explicitly racist phrases. Some even mentioned protecting the Anglo-Saxon race. So Kashia Henderson, who led the study, went on to say, for communities grappling with Confederate monuments and what to do with them, this work provides some guidance. Now, UVA professor, University of Virginia professor, and researcher Sophie Trewalter said in a statement that it is important to note that the data presented in the study is correlational. The data presented in the study is correlational. She said, we can't pinpoint exactly the cause and effect, but the association is clearly there. We can't pinpoint exactly the cause and effect, but the association is clearly there. At a minimum, the data suggests that localities with attitudes and intentions that led to lynchings also had attitudes and intentions associated with the construction of Confederate memorials. Okay, now, see, this type of information here needs to be, yes, there's some stories written about this. There needs to be a ton of stories because people trying to preserve Confederate monuments say these are not symbols of hate. This is just dealing with our history, and you're trying to take away our history, etc. They have a distorted view of history. This is why America must have a massive history lesson. Because if it doesn't, another insurrection will happen, which is a continuation of the Civil War. At a minimum, the data suggests that localities with attitudes and intentions that led to lynchings also had attitudes and intentions associated with the construction of Confederate memorials. In 2020, the year 2020, 169 Confederate symbols were removed in the aftermath of the racial reckoning prompted by the killings of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and other African Americans by police. Okay, I would add in Ahmaud Arbery then also, because it was a former police officer, and these three white men were acting like they were police. Today, more than 2,000 known Confederate monuments still stand throughout the nation, according to the Southern Poverty Law Center. Now, these are statues honoring the traitors to the Union, the losers of the Civil War and the traitors to the Union. Nations don't have monuments honoring traitors to the nation. They don't name buildings and schools and military bases and things like this after traitors who led an insurrection against the government. This is why all the military bases need to be renamed, that are named after the ones that are named after Confederate soldiers and generals, things like this. All the Confederate statues have to be taken down. In their place should be historical markers that talk about what was there and why it was taken down, to teach that, to still teach that history. And all those Confederate statues and monuments need to be put into museums, because that history, the correct history, has to be taught. Today, more than 2,000 known Confederate monuments still stand throughout the nation, according to the Southern Poverty Law Center, University of Virginia's study, and the Southern Poverty Law Center's 2019 Whose Heritage Report. Both mark the Ignite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, but it's actually called Unite the Right. I'm not sure if this is a typo or they're calling it Ignite the Right rally, but the name of the rally is called Unite the Right, not Ignite the Right. Held to protest the removal of a Confederate statue as a symbol, as a significant moment in the battle over Confederate monuments. Now, after that event, a lot of people that weren't already engaged in activism surrounding these Confederate memorials began to take notice of these things. Kashia Henderson said, "It is important to recognize these memorials live in our public spaces, and this matters. Memorials in our public spaces say something about who is rightful, who is welcomed, and who is entitled in these spaces. So we choose to memorialize in these spaces. So what we choose to memorialize in these spaces should matter." I would also say who we choose to memorialize in these spaces should matter as well. Okay, read this article here from NBC News. Number of Confederate monuments linked to number of lynchings, study finds. This is from October 16th, 2021, NBC News. Now, there's also one from the Washington Post. Washington Post has an article from Wednesday, October 13th, 2021. Counties with Confederate monuments also had more lynchings, study finds. Counties with more Confederate monuments also had more lynchings, study finds. Just one section here of this piece here from the Washington Post says, as recently as 2015, 57% of Americans saw the Confederate flag as representing quote unquote Southern pride. As recently as 2015, so that's 6 years ago, 57% of Americans saw the Confederate flag as representing Southern pride. Now, this was before Charlottesville in August 2017. They saw representing Southern pride more than racism, according to a CNN poll. 75% of white Southerners felt it represented pride versus only 11% of African-American Southerners. This is in 2015. Those numbers had hardly moved from a similar poll taken 15 years earlier in the year 2000. But the debate around Confederate symbols and memorials is not just a matter of opinion. It contains testable questions, Kashia Henderson said. Specifically, we can test whether Confederate memorials are associated with hate. We can test whether Confederate memorials are associated with hate. The team compared county-level data of lynchings between 1832 and 1950 with data on Confederate memorials. They found that in any given area, and even controlling for population and other demographic variables, the number of lynchings was a significant predictor of the number of memorials. The number of lynchings was a significant predictor of the number of memorials. So read this one as well from the Washington Post. Counties with more Confederate monuments also had more lynchings, study finds. Okay, now this piece here, this is from August 15th, 2017. This is from Mother Jones, the real story behind all those Confederate monuments. And I've done an entire presentation dealing with the history of the Confederate monuments. The two periods of time when you have the most number of Confederate monuments built, and this piece comes from the Southern Poverty Law Center, is about 1895 to 1915. Okay, and if you look at the chart here, so you see between 1885 and about 1895 or so, blacks lose vote, Jim Crow laws enacted. Blacks lose vote, Jim Crow laws enacted. They're rewriting their state constitutions to impose poll taxes and literacy tests, and they are implementing these southern states are implementing segregation laws in public accommodations, in streetcars, trains, etc. 1889, Florida becomes the first state to have poll taxes. 1890, Mississippi has the Mississippi State Convention, where they rewrite the Mississippi State Constitution and they implement poll taxes and literacy tests to target African Americans, to suppress the African American vote. It becomes known as the Mississippi Plan. And the Mississippi plan becomes the model that Southern states are going to use to suppress the African American vote outside of domestic terrorism. They're going to use that also, but they're rewriting state constitutions, and South Carolina does it in 1895, Louisiana 1898, Alabama 1901, and they're targeting African Americans to suppress the African American vote because during Reconstruction, it's about 2,000 African American men who get elected to public office, including those elected into the U.S. House of Representatives. Okay, you're going to have about 20 elected to the U.S. House of Representatives. Actually, I posted an article earlier today. It's from the Zen Education Project. And let's see here. We can probably pull this up here. It's from the Zen Education Project, and it deals with African-American men in Congress. October 19th, 1870, first African-Americans elected to the House of Representatives. First African-Americans elected to the House of Representatives, Zen Education Project. So when they're changing these state constitutions, they're trying to attack this. They're trying to attack African Americans who are in Congress, but also keeping more from being elected into Congress, and keep them from being elected to the state legislatures. October 19th, 1870, first African Americans elected to the House of Representatives. So these southern states now, in these states that have Republicans dominating the state legislatures, they're passing these voter restriction laws to suppress the African American vote, Latino vote, etc., and restrict our ability to vote. One, two, restrict our ability to vote African Americans, Latinos, etc., into elected office, especially in the House of Representatives and U.S. Senate and the state legislatures. Black Republicans won 3 of the 4 congressional seats in South Carolina. Joseph H. Rainey, Robert C. DeLarge, and Robert E. Elliott. Hiram Rhodes Revels had been elected in 1869 and 1870 to the Senate. He was out of Mississippi. He was a U.S. Senator. This is Hiram Rhodes Revels right here, all the way to the left. Hiram Rhodes Revels. Senator Hiram Rhodes Revels and Representatives Benjamin S. Turner, Josiah T. Walls, Joseph H. Rainey, Robert Brown Elliott, Robert D. DeLarge, and Jefferson H. Long. Now, in South Carolina during Reconstruction, the majority of the state legislature was made up of African American men. And South Carolina had a huge African American population. In Mississippi, the majority of the population of Mississippi is going to be African American, including in 1890, when the minority population, white people, especially in the state legislature, are going to change the state constitution to suppress the African American vote and legalize poll taxes and literacy tests. The Reconstruction era of the United States is one of the most important yet misrepresented or ignored periods in U.S. history. Though often overlooked in classrooms across the country, Reconstruction was a period where the impossible suddenly became possible, And you had a lot of white people who resented, because you're going to have former slaves who are going to be elected to the U.S. House of Representatives, as well as the state legislature. And you're going to have a lot of white people, especially white men, who resent. Now you have former slaves voting on laws that impact everybody. Okay, so if we go back quickly here, look at this chart, and then I have to get out of here. 1895 to 1915, that period of time, and you have rewriting of the state constitutions. You have an increase in lynchings also during this period of time. 1896, Plessy versus Ferguson, U.S. Supreme Court case. 1898, Williams versus Mississippi, U.S. Supreme Court case also, and that challenges the Mississippi State Constitution and the poll taxes, literacy tests that were obstacles to the 15th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. U.S. Supreme Court ruled that those obstacles did not violate the U.S. Constitution, did not violate the 15th Amendment. The movie The Birth of a Nation that comes out on February 8th, 1915. You have this lost cause myth that's being promoted during this period of time also. So we see a huge spike in the number of Confederate monuments being built during that period of time. Then you go through 1920s, 30s, 40s, you go through World War I, World War II, I should say. You go through that period of time and you see a huge decline in the number of Confederate monuments being built. Then during the Civil Rights Movement, about 1955 to 1970, you're going to see an increase in the number of Confederate monuments being built, even though it's less than the huge spike that we saw from about 1895 to 1915. We're going to see another spike in these Confederate monuments, as well as renaming existing schools after Confederate soldiers and generals, things like this. They become opposition to the Civil Rights Movement. They become a symbol of opposition to the Civil Rights Movement and to Brown versus Board of Education, 1954 U.S. Supreme Court case that desegregated the schools. They become opposition to that. So read this here from Mother Jones, the real story behind all those Confederate statues. All right. Now, so these are just some of the things that we deal with in the online course. Also, I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have book references, articles, video clips, all of that. And we go through our history chronologically, and we look at some of the things that led up to the Civil War taking place, starting with the Louisiana Purchase of 1803. Then we go through and look at the Civil War, Reconstruction era, Juneteenth, what happens after the Civil War ends. We look at the Reconstruction era, advances African Americans are making, but also opposition to us making advances as well. Okay. We look at the Freedmen's Bureau, the Freedmen's Bank. Freedmen's Bureau is underfunded. Okay. The Freedmen's Bureau is underfunded. And mismanaged. The Freedmen's Bank is mismanaged also. We lose $2.9 million worth of deposits in the Freedmen's Bank. We still haven't recovered from the Freedmen's Bank collapsing and the Freedmen's Bureau also closing, because the Freedmen's Bureau only existed for a few years, but you're coming out of 246 years of slavery. You know, the Freedmen's Bureau, the U.S. Bureau of Freedmen, Refugees, and Abandoned Lands, that should have existed for decades at least, because it was helping former slaves. It was helping them find lost loved ones, helping them get married. It was providing them with food, providing them with education, helping them negotiate labor contracts, all different types of things like this. The Freedmen's Bureau was doing. It's also helping poor, destitute white people, because there are a lot of destitute white people as well. The Freedmen's Bureau, formerly known as the Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands, it also helped redistribute confiscated land, also redistributed to former slaves. Was established in 1865 by Congress to help millions of former Black slaves and poor whites in the South in the aftermath of the Civil War. The Freedmen's Bureau provided food, housing, and medical aid, established schools, and offered legal assistance. It also attempted to settle former slaves on land confiscated or abandoned during the war. However, the Bureau was prevented from fully carrying out its programs due to a shortage of funds and personnel, along with the politics of race and Reconstruction. The full commitment from even Republicans. The full commitment wasn't there. Okay, so we deal with things like the Colfax Massacre, 1873, Colfax, Louisiana, Eufaula Massacre. We're going to look at massacres around that dealt with political violence, to target African Americans to keep us from voting, to punish us for voting, intimidate us, etc. On November 3rd, 1874, deadly election riots took place in Barber County, Alabama. The White League, which is a paramilitary group affiliated with the Democratic Party at the time. This is before the party realignment. This is even before the Compromise of 1877, when the Republicans conspired with the Democrats for Rutherford B. Hayes to become president, and he would agree to remove the remaining Union troops out of the South that were protecting the rights of African Americans to a certain extent, because the Democrats wanted, largely the Southerners wanted, those Union troops removed from the South so they can take back control of all aspects of society and fully impose white supremacy. The White League attacked African American voters at the polls in Eufaula and Spring Hill, Alabama. 7 African Americans were killed and 70 others wounded. More than 1,000 African Americans were driven away from the voter polls due to the violence of this white supremacist group. Okay, this is the Eufaula Massacre of 1874. This was the Election Day Massacre. We have Vicksburg Massacre, 1875, Vicksburg, Mississippi. We deal with, of course, the Mississippi State Convention, 1890. We talk about the all-white primaries. We talked about this Sunday night when I shared the segment where we spoke with Representative Al Green out of Texas, dealing with the gerrymandering that's taking place right now in Texas, targeting the district in Houston, Texas, the 2 districts in Houston, Texas, that Representative Al Green and Representative Sheila Jackson Lee represent. And Republicans have redrawn the district lines to collapse that district into one district and force them to run against each other. They're trying to take out one of them. Well, all white primaries was something that they had in Texas, and they were ruled unconstitutional in 1944. When literacy tests, poll taxes, and grandfather clauses, and we see grandfather clauses in 1898 in Louisiana, and they're written into the Louisiana, we see that law passes in Louisiana, 1898. When literacy tests, poll taxes, and grandfather clauses, and the many other ways to circumvent the 15th Amendment did not work to suppress Black voter turnout, white legislators in several Southern states used all white primaries to all but eliminate Black voters' presence in the electoral process. After a white election official blocked an African-American man named Lonnie E. Smith the right to vote in the 1940 Texas Democratic primary, the NAACP's Thurgood Marshall and William H. Hastie challenged the case all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. In 1944, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in Smith versus Allwright that the Texas white primary system was unconstitutional. You go back to 1876, see in Texas, they had purity of the ballot box because they were also trying to limit African Americans from voting. They had that purity of the ballot box clause in their Texas state constitution of 1876. And we know Texas comes into the Union in 1844 as a slaveholding state. That used to be part of Mexico. Texas wins its independence from Mexico in 1836. Now, in Texas, for example, the legislature gave the Democratic Party the authority to set its own rules. The party determined that it was for white voters only, excluding African Americans from its elections and effectively making local electoral politics dominated by one party that upheld Jim Crow laws. Okay, so we deal with all this history. In World War I, World War II, U.S. involvement in World War I, how the U.S. gets involved in 1917. We deal with the Great Pandemic of 1918, the Spanish flu pandemic, which happens towards the end of World War I and is going to kill 675,000 Americans from 1918, 1919, 1920. Then 1919, you have the Red Summer, which is the year after World War I ends, and you have over 25 major race riots in the country. And this is 4 years after The Birth of a Nation comes out. And we're fighting back against the movie The Birth of a Nation, having protests. William Monroe Trotter is having protests in Boston. Charlotta Bass is who's the publisher of the California Eagle, black newspaper in California. She's leading protests in California against the movie The Birth of a Nation, because the movie was causing race riots in the streets, and all of the negative stereotypical images of African Americans were depicted in this movie. And this movie rejuvenated the Ku Klux Klan and showed the Klan as being the heroes of the movie by putting down after slavery ends, during the Reconstruction era, they put down a rebellion of former Union Negro soldiers, the Ku Klux Klan. They're made to be the heroes of the movie. And this movie was so popular that the Ku Klux Klan would take out recruiting ads in newspapers next to ads advertising the movie The Birth of a Nation. Because by 1915, the Klan is 50 years old, founded December 24th, 1865 in Pulaski, Tennessee. By 1915, the Klan is not a major factor. A lot of the older members, original members had died out. And there's going to be a second incarnation of the Ku Klux Klan, which comes about in October of 1915, and is founded by the Reverend William Joseph Simmons. And he's going to create this second incarnation of the Ku Klux Klan after seeing the movie The Birth of a Nation. Okay, Washington Post has a good article. The preacher who used Christianity to revive the Ku Klux Klan. The preacher who used Christianity to revive the Ku Klux Klan. This is a piece here from the Washington Post about the Reverend William Joseph Simmons. It was approaching midnight on October 16, 1915, when Methodist preacher William Joseph Simmons and at least 15 other men climbed Stone Mountain. Where? In Georgia. Stone Mountain in Georgia that I just showed you the picture of. And on the side of Stone Mountain, which is the largest Confederate monument in this country, are the carvings of General Robert E. Lee, Thomas Stonewall Jackson, and Jefferson Davis. October 16, 1915, the Reverend William Joseph Simmons and 15 other white men climbed Stone Mountain in Georgia. They built an altar and set fire to a cross. They took an oath of allegiance to the invisible empire and announced the revival of the Ku Klux Klan. They announced the revival of the Ku Klux Klan on top of Stone Mountain. Beneath a makeshift altar, glowing in the flickering flames of the burning cross, they laid a U.S. flag, a sword, and a holy Bible. Quote, the angels that have anxiously watched the Reformation from its beginnings, said the Reverend William Joseph Simmons, who declared himself imperial wizard, quote, must have hovered above Stone Mountain and shouted hosannas to the highest heavens, end quote. Last Wednesday, on the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., progressive faith groups held a march in Washington to combat racism and atone for the history of that prejudice. So read this article here, because it ties us to the birth of a nation. And Reverend William Joseph Simmons saw the movie The Birth of a Nation and was inspired by the movie to rejuvenate the Ku Klux Klan. Restricting membership to white Christians, the Klan wore white robes to symbolize purity, burned crosses to signify the light of Christ, and picked selective scriptures from the Bible to preach white supremacy. The invisible empire's comeback was aided by Hollywood's first blockbuster, D.W. Griffith's The Birth of a Nation, which glamorized the Ku Klux Klan. So read this article here, The Preacher Who Used Christianity to Revive the Ku Klux Klan. This is from, what's the date on this? Yeah, April 10th, 2018. April 20th, 2018 by Deneen L. Brown. She writes some good articles for the Washington Post. All right, so be sure to register for the 2 online courses that I teach on Saturday and Sunday. From the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. We do the Saturdays, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are recorded and archived. You can go back and watch them anytime. This one's on sale $70, regularly $130. As soon as you register, you can watch the class we did last week. And then also the other course that I teach is Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We do this Sundays, 12 noon to 2 p.m. We deal with thousands of years of history and what led up to the transatlantic slave trade. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. It's a 10-week online course also. That's on sale $80, regularly $130. We have a course bundle for a very, very limited time only, where you can register for both classes for $100, regularly $260. We'll post that link here also for the course bundle. So this is at our online school. This is not on Facebook or YouTube, anywhere like that. Okay, we'll post this link here for the course bundle also. If you want me to do a presentation for a group or organization, email me at TheAHNShow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AHNShow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, or at TheAHNShow@gmail.com, TheAHNShow@gmail.com. If you want me to do a presentation for your group or organization, or teach a class either virtually or in person. We know that African American History Month is coming up in February. We know Kwanzaa is coming up in December, in January. Dr. King Day is coming up as well. So contact me. All right, look, we have to get out of here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you tomorrow.